When you look across the country, if you talk to someone who is from New Jersey, you get a different accent. California, Atlanta, maybe New York, they do speak differently because the accent is different. Here, it seems to be more pronounced, but that's because of that infusion of all those different ethnic groups that were part of the development of the whole Louisiana area.
My name's Lisa Crescent. I'm a lifelong resident of New Orleans, Louisiana. I've been here all my life. Yes.
Where did you go to high school?
Xavier Prep.
Ellis Mims.
How old are you?
I'm 29 years old.
Where did you grow up in New Orleans?
Uptown.
Ethan Perry, I'm a truck driver, 40 years. Born in New Orleans, Terry Hospital, raised in Crescent, Louisiana.
Terry Wilson, or Coach Wilson is my name. I'm here from New Orleans. I went to high school at L.B. Landry High School. I live on the West Bank.
I'm born and raised from New Orleans, Louisiana. Went to Catholic school all my life, St. Mary's Academy.
My name's Amanda Devos. I grew up in New Orleans. I went to college and graduated with a Bachelor of Journalism in Norfolk State.
I'll be 80 this year. I was born at Hotel Dieu in New Orleans, which no longer exists. For a while they rebuilt the hospital there, I think, but as far as I know, it doesn't exist anymore. And I lived on Murray Street on the corner of Kellerick and Murray for the first 17 years of my life with my grandmother, who had a grocery store there.
My name is Angel Christopher. I'm 10 years old.
I grew up in the Gentilly area, Mithra Street and Press.
What was it like living there?
It was very homey. Everyone on the street, took care of each other. If my parents weren't there, I would be able to go to a next door neighbor's house and they would look after me until my mom or my grandmother would come home from work.
And it was interesting because it was almost a family type atmosphere. People knew each other. People worked together with each other. And there wasn't an issue with regard to anything relative to race as a major issue. People understood they needed to work together, and the cultures kind of accepted each other. So it was an interesting time.
It was a homely neighborhood. Everybody pretty much grew up in the neighborhood. It was a family neighborhood, so most of the families were generations of people there. So I knew all the older people, the grandmothers, the grandchildren. We played together. Their aunts and uncles, we all knew each other. So if we did something wrong, they could whip us. Everybody had free reign, so that's how it was in that neighborhood. So we was one close-knit family.
We have a culture all its own, a culture like no other city I've ever been to. We're unique. We speak differently, we dress differently, we act differently. We're just really, our food is different. I couldn't find food like the food in New Orleans when I travel to other places. So we're just different.
It's a unique culture. The food, the people, hospitable. You have different events or something always going on in New Orleans, so it's just a different culture. It's unique than other cities. It's always something to do.
It's just, you can't find a street corn in no other city. You can't find beignets in no other city. I mean, it's New Orleans.
The food is so different. I haven't really found anything in Atlanta that compares to anything from New Orleans. Our food is just it has so much soul to it, and it just has seasoning and everything. So their food it's kind of bland. They eat a lot of Jamaican type dishes and things, and I'm not really used to that.
Do you like to celebrate Mardi Gras?
Yes, we're the only place with Mardi Gras.
How about other festivals like Jazz Fest and stuff?
Of course, we're the only city that throws a parade for the hot dogs, so come on.
I saw my first parade when I was about 5 years of age. That's almost 75 years ago. So if I miss a few parades, it doesn't bother me any.
This was my first Mardi Gras since high school, which was like 12 years ago. And I really couldn't celebrate it because I had to chaperone the school that I worked with. So I really didn't get to enjoy it.
Yes, I go to the French Corner Fest, the Jazz Fest, Strawberry Fest. It's not all the fests I attend. Has anyone from somewhere else ever commented on the way you speak?
I think that they have maybe said that some of us sound like we're from Brooklyn or so, but other than that.
Yes. They said talk Cajun.
Cajun?
Yeah.
Like in what way? Like how do you?
Well, they say, I always say Louisiana, we're a bunch of Cajun people, and something to say like when we talk, people can pick up right away, say, I guarantee you from Louisiana and New Orleans, because just things we say and the way we say it, how we talk. And they just think that we're from the Cajun country, and that's what they call us.
A lot of people seem to think that we have many Cajuns here, because when you see movies involving New Orleans, they almost always have some Cajuns, and there aren't that many Cajuns around. We do have some, but not that many.
My suite mates are actually from Philly, so when we talk to them, sometimes they're so confused as to what we're talking about, and they can't always understand what we're saying because of our accent.
We went to Mississippi, a little town called Indianola, Mississippi. And the way we speak versus the way they speak is completely different. Everybody, for some reason, is just so in love with our speech. I mean, we're the only place, I think, that says, I'm going to make groceries. Everyone else is going to buy groceries or get groceries, or we make groceries for some reason in New Orleans.
In actuality, it means that you're going to go shop and pick up some groceries. But here in New Orleans, we say making groceries.
You're going to make groceries, you're going to the grocery and get the groceries you need for your house.
Because did you know that in any other city
They don't say it.
Yes.
The typical one, though, that strikes everyone is everywhere in New Orleans you will see a median, which is a divider of a particular street. In New Orleans, many people call it a neutral ground. And the reason they call it a neutral ground is during the war in New Orleans, the Battle of New Orleans. Actually, those medians were the neutral ground areas between the fighting forces.
Neutral ground.
The neutral ground, yes. Actually, we had a topic about this in one of my college journalism classes, and they didn't really understand what a neutral ground was, so I had to draw a diagram on the board for them and kind of explain it. So that was a little rough. I can't remember the term that they used, but it's definitely not a neutral ground. A median. They weren't even saying median. No, it was weird. So I guess they had their own little dialect for neutral ground. It's the neutral ground in the center of two streets, roads. something like that. Neutral meaning middle.
I think New Orleans is very unique in terms of its dialect and colloquialisms. Part of that, or maybe a major part of that, I think is basically because of the heritage, the French and the Spanish, the fact that they were American Indians also in this area, who were here long before others arrived. And I think that's a combination of all those different dialects, which makes New Orleans and the surrounding areas quite different from other sections of the country, which may not have experienced that kind of infusion of different cultures and different peoples.
If you had to describe the city's dialects, how would you describe them?
Unique.
Where do people speak differently from you?
Everywhere else. No one speaks like anyone in New Orleans. We don't even sound alike.
And New Orleans, that's another thing. It's supposed to be New Orleans, but we're naturally New Orleans.
New Orleans.
New Orleans.
New Orleans.
New Orleans.
I think it's because we live so far south, we drag our words. Other people be like it. We be like it. Hey, they be like hey. Hey, like it's just different ways to speak.
We left for Katrina. I actually left the day before it hit. We went to Baton Rouge when it hit.
I felt real bad. A lot of people lost a lot. I felt real bad since Katrina.
Actually, my father stayed, and I was a wreck because I couldn't get in touch with him. Didn't know where he was. It was about a week later when I found out that he was on one of the cruise ships. The National Guard had rescued him out of his home over on Columbus Street and took him to the cruise ships where they were staying. Yes, it's changed a lot. I won't say all for the better.
A lot more violence. A lot more very bad people.
I remember as a kid being able to just walk up and down the street and not have to worry about anything at all. Used to catch the bus. We used to love catching the public bus. Different things like that, playing outside. But now you don't see much of kids playing outside, doing different things like that. Not really too safe in certain areas to walk up and down the streets, whereas most of the areas that I grew up in was fine, but now I don't necessarily think I would want to be walking up and down the streets in those areas anymore.
We have a different dynamic in New Orleans since the storm there. It's just a big change. It's more of a melting pot than it was prior to Hurricane Katrina.
Do you think the way people talk in New Orleans is changing?
Yes, it is.
Can you give some examples?
We have many people are moving here to New Orleans from different areas. Northern people coming down. We have a lot of Mexican people coming. So it's just a different bunch of, I should say, different languages, and they speak different. But after here a while, they can still be speaking like us.
But I think if you travel to other areas, you will find similar situations with people who have sayings that were very prominent in the past and may not be as prominent today. The one I can think of is what I hear students say about people in terms of how they appear. If they are fashionable, we used to say they're well dressed. Today they call it what? Swag?
Each generation has its different slang, so some of the slang that we said back in the day, y'all probably don't say now. But I mean, we say, you have an outfit, you be like, that's shy. You don't hear that anymore. Shy means it's nice. You don't hear too many people say, what's up, Wardy? That's a term of endearment. How you doing, my brother? You say we ribbon people. When you're talking about someone, I don't know if y'all still say that. I don't know what terms y'all say now. Y'all say y'all throwing shade at people. Never heard of that until I got back home recently. So, I mean, some of the stuff we still talk backwards. You know, we saying we gonna make groceries. That's just a New Orleans thing, but nowhere else in the country do they say that because it doesn't make sense to them. So some of the things have changed, but some of it is different now.
Snowball. What's down? What's up, shorty? Word, son?
It's a generational kind of thing, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. I think that's a development as part of what happens naturally with dialect, with speech, and how people interpret things and how they choose to express them.
Do you think the way people talk in New Orleans is changing?
No, people in New Orleans don't be New Orleans. They always gonna talk the same way, and you could tell every time they talk they're from New Orleans. You'll know New Orleans soon you're speaking with them.
That's a good question. It just depends on the group that you're around. Some people, the generations, the different groups, the different ethnicities, different cultures that have came into New Orleans. We all have a different way of speaking, but at some time, once everyone settles in New Orleans, they'll eventually pick up the lingo.
So the dialect that you grew up with, is it any different from what you hear now?
To a large extent, no, because I think part of that heritage and that mixture is still here. So I don't believe it's left us as much as people think. I think when you listen to people from this area, you still hear that distinct dialect that is so different from other parts of the country. In fact, as I travel, people will comment to one extreme or another. Some of them say, you do not sound like someone from New Orleans. But when we get into conversation on a casual level, some of those colloquialisms come out, and then they can tell.
I think it's, in somewhat it has, but obviously New Orleans is going to be New Orleans. Of course, it's that accent. It has changed a little since Katrina, but overall, New Orleans probably going to always be New Orleans.
Do you like living in New Orleans?
Love it. Couldn't be anywhere else.
How do you feel about the way people talk in New Orleans?
I think it's okay. It's different to outsiders, but we understand each other.
I love it. I mean, it's New Orleans. No one else can be New Orleans. We are New Orleans. I am